to the group conversation, the general group conversation. I'm your host, Sijbrandij, co-founder and CEO at GitLab. And Clement has the first question. Thanks for that, Clement. Do you want to verbalize it?
Yeah. Thanks, Sid. I'm not sure how far we can get into since it's public stream, but concerning a conversation around GitLab Zero, I was just wondering if there's anything in hindsight we could have done differently, to not have to go through all this today.
Yeah, thanks for that. Makes a ton of sense. Yeah, I think if you zoom out a bit, I think open source is at a disadvantage to proprietary SaaS services, because if you have a proprietary SaaS service, you know exactly who all the users are and what they are doing. And you can use that both to improve the product and to be kind of more relevant to your customers, to help them at exactly the right moment. And therefore, those businesses are more successful. And I think it's a big threat to open source, because if you use a SaaS service, like whether the code is proprietary or not, kind of it tends to matter less. So I think open source will be less successful unless we figure out how to have the same advantages. So on one hand, open source also means a certain expectation of privacy. But how do we combine that with those advantages? And I think we at GitLab, we make very sure that we never kind of fetch from your server what projects you're working on and what comment you're exactly making. But I think aggregated metrics about, okay, how are people using the product? I think those will become more common, because you kind of need that to improve the product. We have so many teams at GitLab, and many of them don't know how many people use what they make and whether it's popular or how many problems they run into. And that's a big disadvantage, and it will lead to less good products. So I think we'll have to solve that as an industry. And I think with GitLab, we had a first take on that didn't go, that we didn't make the right trade-offs, and we had to walk that back. But I don't think that is going away, because we'll need it to make sure that open source stays competitive with SaaS, proprietary SaaS solutions. Anybody else wants to verbalize a question? Oh, I see that my Google Doc isn't loading, so I'll refresh. Kenny.
Yeah, I think I tried to start adding it, but mine also is not loading. So thank you for the COVID-19 reminder. I appreciate that, and I appreciate everything that GitLab does to remind us that friends and family do come first. I'm wondering, I think you've been great about taking vacations, Sid. Is it also important to remind everyone that friends and family also means self first? Like, it's important to also take care of yourself. We sometimes forget that part.
Yeah, I'm not going to instruct everyone to be their own best friend, but yeah, for sure it means yourself. I took 2 weeks of vacation the last month in the Northern Hemisphere. It's summertime. People, please enjoy. And yeah, we should take care of. If you don't take care of yourself, it's pretty hard to take care of other people. So I think that's a valid call out. Elsie, you have the next one.
I'm in.
Was someone not muted? Okay. Hi, Sid. Yeah, I was just wondering how we're doing on private Slack messages since you posted in Slack about direct messages. It was a couple of weeks ago, wasn't it, that you made the initial request? I was just wondering if you've run a report recently and if you've seen any change.
Yeah, I haven't looked at it, so that's an interesting question. I think one of the things I would hope is that I see more kind of named private channels instead of group DMs, because some things are private, but it's still handy to have them in a channel instead of a group DM where there's no way to invite anybody. It's really hard to go back to the messages if you need to go back to them at a later time. And I wonder if we've seen some more activity in public channels from people who now know, like, it's not noise. Like, as long as you use a thread, you can use the public channel for something that might not be relevant, but just to get everyone to feel what's going on.
Sid, I just pulled an updated report if you want the number. So
Yeah, take it away, Emily. Let's. Elsie is clearly interested.
So in June, I'll share my screen just so everyone can kind of see exactly what I'm looking at. But in June, the calendar month of June, we were at 19%, which is the same percent we were at in May and in April. So no notable improvement yet, but you know, go back to your teams and think about where you can change behaviors one person at a time. And hopefully we'll see a bump for July.
And we didn't kick off the campaign until I think July 2nd. So this is the month where we expect to see change.
Okay, well, that sounds really good. Thank you.
Thanks for asking, Elsie. Craig, you have the next one.
Yeah, reading through the slides. So slide 10, where you have OKRs, the first one, 1.1, I guess would be the proper numbering. Which initiatives are you most excited about to help increase our IACV?
What I spend a lot of time thinking about is competing with Microsoft Azure GitHub. So that's certainly top of mind. That's something where I think we have a lot of. It's on one hand, it's a really great position to be only in a great market with only one serious competitor, or serious, but one clear competitor. On the other hand, Microsoft is a great go-to market, and almost every enterprise has an enterprise license agreement with them, so they have a great channel to sell their product in. But I think clearly articulating all the benefits of GitLab is going to be very important. I think we're underselling, for example, the compliance features we already build into the product and that we're still building into the product. I'm also excited about the outreach. Like, it's pretty cool. We changed our model to outbound only, and we now have a lot of kind of control on kind of like who we add to the company. And I think last time I checked, because those metrics are public in our handbook, I think we already reached 50% top of funnel from outreach. I think we already made that metric. So I think it might even overshoot in a positive sense. So where we have a lot of control, and I think the 90% of outreach to diverse candidates, I think that's also going pretty well from what I could see. Although that data is harder to get, but glossing over the names and pictures, it seems that we're attracting a much more diverse set of people. So that's cool. Yeah, I'm excited about a lot. I think the certifications and the L&D is also top of mind. I think one thing we can do with GitLab, our certifications are going to be open to the world. So not only the people at GitLab, but if someone in the wider world wants to get certified in, like, for example, now remote working, that's already possible. But we're going to do that with every single certification. And I think that's going to be very cool, where for the ones that it's completely automated, we can offer that at $0. So we kind of become a Coursera for that matter. And I see what the impact is of like more affordable education. It's just great. It's helping so many people increase their income very significantly. So I think us as a company, we can have a big impact on the world, even beyond our own team members. So I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah, I just read through the engineering manager certification curriculum. It's comprehensive, but it's also very exciting. So thank you for whoever set that up. I don't remember who set it up, but thank you for setting that up.
Cool. And yeah, apart from that, all these initiatives, they're like your kids. So it's kind of impolite to ask people to pick between them. I think getting our go-to-market payback ratio under like X number of months is also going to be a very important thing for the company, making sure that we get a quick return on the dollars we invest there. And marketing is doing a great job with getting better attribution for all the dollars we spend. So that data is now really becoming actionable, where we can say, okay, this is really working. We can double down there. Anybody else wants to verbalize a question?
Yeah, I'll ask. The doc isn't working for me. So on Twitter recently, you commented on the book Super Thinking, and I was curious, assuming you read it, what did you get out of it?
Thanks for that. I didn't read the book, but I read the blog post, because I think you're diving in my replies on Twitter, which is fine. I think it was a reply to someone who asked, what is a book that is based upon a blog post? And I know the blog post, it's mental models I find repeatedly useful. But I think the founder of DuckDuckGo, the search engine. And that's the book I use with my accent removal teacher, who is helping me with my pronunciation. And I believe that there are more THs in that blog post than anywhere else on the internet, but that's probably my bias, because he makes me pronounce them properly every time. But that's the blog post, and that should be in my browser history. So I'll paste that in the doc.
Cool, thank you.
There you go. And it's a super interesting one. So it makes the misery of being very incompetent much more bearable. And incompetent, I don't mean my English is particularly bad. It's just, it's really hard to improve it. Like, it's so automated and ingrained that you keep making the same mistakes.
Sid, I have a question about that accent reduction class. Like you, I also took those classes based on advice. Since then, though, I didn't consider them as necessary as I initially thought. What motivated you to take that?
Yeah, I think as long as people can understand you, it's already okay. And you, for example, are completely understandable. I think if you look at our investors, like if you go on the public roadshow, it's like almost all of the people are American natives. They lived in the America from really early in their lives. So my calculation was, if we feel just a little bit more familiar as a company, because I don't stand out as a foreigner within 30 seconds, but I can increase it to 2 minutes. I think that will help the company and will get us a higher valuation. And I think that will more than pay for the lessons. So that's the logic. Like there's a lot of unconscious biases as we learn in training every day. And of course, it's better to be aware of them and not to have them. But on the other hand, I think it's also, if there's things you can improve, why not do that? But I think as long as Siri understands what you say, I think that's fine. And luckily, I live in San Francisco, where people are very accommodating of people with a bit of who are recognizable foreigners.
It seems like the Handbook First approach is becoming elevated again. Not that it was ever lowered, but I think specifically from a customer success standpoint, we're making an intentional effort to make it more used. The handbook is massive, and I think that there's potential that it doesn't get used as appropriately. Do we have any KPIs or ways to measure how much the handbook is being used and iterated upon across the organization that we're looking at?
I think the one thing I look at for that is like, if a change is being communicated, is it handbook first? Are people pointing, when communicating a change, are people pointing to a Google Doc, a presentation, or the handbook? And every time it's not the handbook, we're not working handbook first, and it's a problem. So that's the one. And it's not where it should be right now.
Do we have any intentions of being a little bit more strategic about how we're measuring that? I'm thinking about our Slack conversations and how we have a metric to say, hey, we only have, we have less than 20% or more than, 80% happening in private conversations. Is there any way we could do that with the handbook as well?
I don't know, but I think that we can kind of reinforce it. Like, we all see that communication go out because it's a broader communication. And at some point we can just say, hey, I deleted your message because it wasn't handbook first. And so we can have a bit more enforcement. I'm hesitant to do that at this time because the static site editor team is still doing a great job of making it easier to use the handbook. They already improved image uploading. They have something where you have a bit more WYSIWYG editing, but it's not, I don't think it works with our handbook yet. I think that's in the works. So we're getting close, and I want to give them a bit more time to get better there, because it's a trade-off where, yes, great to use the handbook all the time, but it's not as convenient as it should be. The other thing I'm really looking forward to is real-time editing of issue descriptions. I think if you're in a meeting, a Google Doc is just way better than an issue description because everyone has a cursor. And we have a line of sight to that, but I think right now it's still many months, and I'd love for that to get in the low single digits and have a timeline. So I'm reluctant to start enforcing while the tools are still improving a lot to make it more convenient. Cool. Hila has question number 7.
Yeah, so I don't know whether you have seen the brand research our marketing team did with the external consultant and they shared. I find it very interesting. So they did this survey among, I think, 200 GitLab customers. And this slide highlighted some factors that are more important than others in driving brand consideration. How do you think about, like, if you look at the critical important items, the collaboration between devs and ops, collaboration between dev and security, open source, compare with that with the less important ones, save time, streamline process. How do you think of it? Does that help us think a little bit more about how we should position and market?
Yeah, 2 things that really stood out to me, that GitLab is open source is critically important. Very early on in the company, I heard a lot of people say, look, if you want to sell companies, like, don't belabor the point about being open source. In the end, they want something that works. They're very practical. So I think from the start, we set this tone of GitLab is just, it's better software. You get more functionality, etc. Yeah, and it's also open source, but as an afterthought. And it seems that in the time between doing that and now, companies have started to recognize the power of open source solutions. There's more freedom, there's less vendor lock-in, the product will keep evolving, there's more security in that the product will keep existing, and there's faster innovation. So maybe because it's now more top of mind for companies, we should dial it up a little bit and position it as the open source or open core solution. I thought another interesting one is that GitLab makes software more secure was less important, the least important category. And that doesn't rhyme with what I'm seeing when we sell Ultimate. maybe that's why not everyone's buying Ultimate, because it's less important. But I still think that kind of making secure software feels to me very important to companies. It feels like the reason why they're prepared to pay for Ultimate. But out of this research, it came that it's less important. So that was an interesting finding, and I don't know what to make of that yet.
Hey, Sid, I've got the next question. This is David Summers. In the spirit of just keeping customer-centric thinking top of mind, just curious to see what's something you've learned or an insight you've gathered from a recent interaction you've had with a GitLab customer.
The last one was yesterday on Hacker News, but I think our advocacy team and our support team did a good one of addressing that. Look, I think our number one problem is they're just using us for version control and a little bit of CI. And I think it's so important for us to make sure that they get to use the rest of the product. We see a bit of an uptick in package now, but having them use more of a product is the essential thing. And that's essential to our success, that we break out beyond version control and CI. And that's tough, but I think that's what needed. And with customers, we're not there yet. And so both in our messaging, in our ease of use, and how the product works, we need to make sure that we get them there and increase the number of stages per user. Considering time, I'm moving on to Joe.
Yeah, I said, want to bring up Twitter again. I saw a reply tweet to the announcement of the Hashicorp release, and curious what you maybe admire about that company and any areas you would think about applying to GitLab.
Thanks. It was about Hashicorp Nomad. So they have 4 main products. Terraform, which is great, and we're investing to make that work great on GitLab, and that's really resonating with customers, so we're doing a great job. Vault, to make stuff secure, we're integrating that better with GitLab, excited about that. Console, we're using that in our packaging. I'm not sure how that's going to fare against etcd, but all good. And Nomad is a competitor to Kubernetes, and it doesn't have a lot of traction compared to Kubernetes, so I'm not ecstatic about that product, because it seems like, look, the cloud needs an operating system. It's Kubernetes. It has way more functionality. But I never want to underestimate a function that is like, has less features, but is simpler and easier, because simpler and easier in the end wins the day. And it was amazing to see that in kind of the release, the 0.12 release, how much functionality Nomad added in a single release. It was quite staggering. So also never want to bet against something that just improves really rapidly. And anyway, I admire companies that ship. I'm very proud of GitLab of shipping as much as we do every month. It was Nomad was an impressive release, so I figured I'd call that out. I said I think real artists ship. That's what we pride ourselves on, and I want to recognize it when they do it. And in the end, Hashicorp is I think a great partner. We're collaborating a lot, and we're using a lot of their software in GitLab and make GitLab work great with it. So I want to, when you see them doing something awesome, I thought it was worth a shout out. Thanks for noticing that, and thanks for asking about it. Sherry, probably the last question, considering the time.
Yeah, just misuse words like Mr., Mrs. I used to be referred as Mr. because I use my Chinese name. So people call me up, say, Mr., can I speak to Mr. Minghan? So when I apply job to GitLab, I get some phone calls from people say, can I speak to Mr. So I pick my social media channel handle, Cherry. And so what do you think about this? Do you recommend we, don't refer people to Mr. or Mrs.? So is there a better way to, say hello to people, yet not create a gender issue there.
Yeah.
Especially with name, you know, I would love to go with my original name because that's what I'm well known in Toronto. But when I came to US, I've been called Mr. many times. So.
Yeah. Well, first of all, sorry for our misgendering of you during the interview.
Not by GitLab, but
okay.
Potentially others.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. As for the solution, I don't know. I'm open to other suggestions. The only thing that we could do is maybe on our team page, also have the pronouns on there. That's a solution I could think of. So I'm open to that.
Yeah. Sid, if I can speak up, Sherry, if you want to change it to Ming at GitLab, you're welcome to, and we can help support the name change. So please reach out to peopleops@gitlab.com and we're happy to assist. And maybe we could also make sure that the pronoun is updated on the team page and potentially add that as a signature. I'm just thinking to make sure it's clear to anyone working with you. Also externally, if you use your GitLab email address. I'm sorry to hear that's still happening though.
Yeah, I'm okay. A lot of people refer me because I use social media handles. So it's like it's common known. It just professionally, I still, some other people refer me my, other name. Just gets a bit confused. Or legally, when I fill out the form, I have to give another name. But it's just something to share with you folks. It's and beginning I thought it's a funny story, but it took a personality of yourself.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, we want to refer to people at GitLab with the pronouns they prefer. So anyway, we can help with that. It's probably a good thing. Thanks for asking, and that's all we had time for today. Thanks for all the question askers.